Hello everyone. Thank you so much to the SoMeT team for inviting me, and on behalf of TripAdvisor, we're very, very happy to sponsor the event again this year. So just before I start, I wanted to quickly introduce myself. I am not Sarah Matthews. Some of you have met her previously, and unfortunately she couldn't join us today as she had a family emergency in Hong Kong. So you've got me. My name is Jessica Quinlan, and I am the Senior Sales Executive for Destination Marketing. So just as a quick intro, the Destination Marketing team consists of 3 people, Asia Pacific, which is a very small team. That is me jumping into the Sydney Harbour with Sarah's foot kicking me, which is exactly how I feel right now. She definitely threw me in the deep end, but that's okay. So what I am going to present on today are 2 things. The first is the connected traveller and the traveller on mobile. So mobile is the first one. The second one is China. As we know, it's a growing outbound market. Just to clarify, I am actually not Chinese. Sarah had me say this. Sarah has assisted me with some of my slides, and I am going to speak as though I am Chinese. However, I am not. So looking at TripAdvisor and actually casting our minds back over 10 years ago, how did we used to travel and how did we used to search for travel? So some of us may say that we looked at brochures. Some people may have even started looking online then. But how much choice did you actually have and how much say? So TripAdvisor was actually launched in 2000 above a small pizzeria in Newton, Boston. And the reason why TripAdvisor actually was born is due to the fact that the CEO and president, Steve Kaufer, was searching for a hotel in Mexico. So he was searching for that hotel. He found the hotel that he wanted in a brochure, asked his wife if this was okay. She said yes. He then looked online and couldn't find any real photos of that hotel. He could see all of the nice marketing images and could see their website. However, he wasn't really believing what he was seeing. So as an engineer, he trawled through, he said, 1,500 pages on TripAdvisor to find a real photo of that hotel. So he found it, and it looked nothing like the marketing image. Completely different look, feel. It was in a different location. It didn't have those nice amenities. And it basically just wasn't what he was looking for. And then he said, how can I tell other people about this? How can I make sure a traveller that's coming to this hotel is going to be able to see these photos and really realise where they're going? And that's how TripAdvisor was born. So as I said, TripAdvisor started in 2000, and in the first year we had 1 million reviews. So we immediately realised that people love talking about their experiences, both positive and negative. So looking at where we were in 2013, at 100 million reviews. However, right now, we currently have 340 million unique visitors a month. Of that, we have around 5 million businesses listed, and we normally have around 139 user reviews or opinions per minute. So by the end of this presentation, we'll probably see about 5,000 to 6,000 new comments online. So for destinations, we do have around 150,000 destinations, and that is actually growing day on day. Part of my role is to look at a destination and help you with how you're going to be speaking to the audience, what kind of content you have. And therefore, content is obviously a very important thing. We've heard this morning that content is essential to speaking to the traveller and interacting. So looking at our mobile app, before I get into this, how many people have downloaded the mobile app, the TripAdvisor mobile app? Okay, great. And before I even go any further, I just want to make sure everyone has a smartphone, right? Raise of hands. Smartphone, smartphone. I actually see a few people that don't have their hand, but I think it might have been an accident. Actually, during the G20 conference that I assisted with organising in Brisbane, there was one of our key speakers, our keynote speaker, very, very smart man from Ireland. He didn't have a smartphone. And the reason actually was, and I asked him, it was because he thought the CIA was spying on him. And he was convinced he was being tracked. So that's the last person that I've met, and that was last October, that I met that actually didn't have a smartphone. So thank God for that. And to this day, he still doesn't own one. He is convinced that CIA are tracking him. He doesn't know why, he's just convinced. So the reason why I would like to talk about mobile is because we've seen a 175% increase in mobile use on TripAdvisor. That is a huge increase year on year. We're seeing around 45% of our users are regularly using mobile, however, still 55% are using desktop. So it is huge, it's a huge market, and if your content is not on mobile already, you can just forget those 45% because it's essential. Moving on, looking at the app in particular. So the app is downloaded at a rate of around 28 times per minute, which I know is not the most popular app in the world, but it is a very popular travel app. And what we've seen on our app and the functionality that it started off is simply as a meta search engine. So the meta is just a search of OTA's hotel prices, and OTAs were the main operators that were listed within that space. However, now we have a platform called Instant Book, which is actually integrated within TripAdvisor. So I won't go into that, but if you have any questions, please let me know. But we also look at photos. So I know photos have been discussed this morning, and we've found that over 73% of travellers actually look at the photos and will decide if they go to that destination based on the photo itself, which is huge. So as much as content and writing and articles and blogs are all very important, it is still about that image. So also looking at the app, the offline functionalities. So I don't know if anyone's used offline. However, with offline, we have the functionality that when you turn off your roaming, you can actually use a functionality called Near Me Now, which spans a 20-mile radius and will tell you all of the hotels, restaurants, and things to do around you. Not only that, it will point you there. So it's called Point Me There. And if you hold your phone out and you say, I want to go to the Monaco hotel where I'm staying, it will direct me there without my roaming, which is great for our international travellers. This is actually the Brisbane City Guide, which is one of our downloadable city guides globally. There are only 300 of them, and the reason for that is that we don't have the content to create them, which is why we're constantly banging on about content. So the Brisbane City Guide is great. It can be downloaded before you travel, and during your trip, you can refer back to that app at any point and use all of that functionality. So looking at what people are using their mobile devices in market for, they're using it when traveling, they're using it for in-destination information. They're using it for restaurants. We've seen huge increases in restaurants. That 45% has actually been increasing year on year. We're seeing about 60% now. So that's actually an old slide. People are looking for that restaurant dining experience. And I'll go into the Chinese in a minute, but it's extremely important. That cuisine is extremely important for those travellers. Looking at reading reviews, us Aussies, we love reading reviews. It's actually Australians read reviews for about 15 minutes in duration, and normally between 6 to 12 reviews per session. So we're hungry for that information. They're looking for things to do. And then this is a really interesting slide that we actually pulled from Focusrite, which was an online travel study looking at online bookings and online traffic. So what we're seeing is that TripAdvisor is still dominating online traffic even ahead of the OTAs. And an interesting one that some people are looking at very closely is Airbnb. So it's just interesting to note that TripAdvisor year on year is still #1 searched website online as well. So looking at the Apple Watch, just a quick part on wearables. The Apple Watch actually comes pre-downloaded with TripAdvisor, and the functionality works the same as the app. So you can see where the restaurant is, what the reviews are, take me there, near me now, it works. However, there's one hotel chain, SPG, Starwood. They actually have amazing technology that includes the roomless key entry now on your Apple Watch, which is very, very cool. Not only that, but they have a translating function for travelers that are wanting to translate into different languages, and they have check-in and check-out on the Apple Watch, which means that your check-in process has probably gone from around 5 to 10 minutes to 10 seconds, or as long as it takes to load. So it's very exciting space and something to be aware of. So this is one of our studies that we look at globally. We survey around 40,000 travellers, and we're really focused at the moment on how they are behaving online using their mobile. So a connected traveller technically means they have planned and they've booked their trip on their mobile only. So they have never connected on the desktop. So this is what we've found. So who are they? They're actually from South America. They are the extremely connected travellers that we're seeing. They're also from the Middle East. They're from Asia. And right down there we have Australasia. So we see the South Americans using their phones a lot. And looking at the percentage, the Thais actually use their phone. And I can absolutely say, without a doubt in my mind, living in Thailand for 2 years, they are stuck on their mobile phones, very similar to the Chinese. So they rarely get off their phones, and they're looking at every point during the day, probably spending between 5 to 6 hours on their phone. The Brazilians, the Indonesians as well. So looking at dream destinations, and apologies for all of the data, but it wouldn't be a TripAdvisor presentation without many slides of data, so apologies, I hope this is interesting for you. But looking at where people are dreaming and where people are actually going, it's really interesting to note that people want to go to China. They don't only want to travel from China. So the connected traveller actually is planning on travelling to China more likely than they're planning to travel to Australia, which is really something that is interesting for all of us to know, that not only do we, I've never spoke to anyone that considers China as being their biggest competitor, it would have been their biggest opportunity. So this is really interesting to note. So the factors that influence a mobile booker, so someone that's actually wanting to book on their mobile, what is really their influences? They're influenced by online reviews, as we already know. They're influenced by recommendations from friends and family. But they're also influenced by amenities. So I know that Paul's probably going to say this, but 77% of travellers online want free Wi-Fi. So if you don't have that, these days, the connected traveller may actually not come to that property or that destination if they cannot connect. So looking at their booking channels, obviously we're seeing a big decrease in people booking at travel agents, no secret, but we're seeing a really big increase in people booking on mobile apps. So using their mobile, normally they're on web, however they're moving over to mobile app now. So looking at the connected traveller platform, laptop so the desktop is still the most popular form. However, we're seeing the most growth in the mobile. So it's really good to note that it's growing very continuously. So looking at how mobile is used, people use mobile, obviously, phoning and texting, but mostly finding their way around. So that's why we have the technology in our app that will show you around to where you're going. Social networking, they're looking for restaurants. As I said, they're hungry and they want to go somewhere. They're looking online. So I know I've even done today I've had a look at which restaurants I can go to dinner tonight in Caloundra. And obviously I'm only looking at the top because I don't have time to scroll through hundreds of listings. So looking at online booking capabilities, Australia were actually doing quite well, which is great, but we could do better. So offering a mobile-friendly website is essential, but offering that booking ability is even more essential. And as we see the growth in the mobile app, that's going to become something that's really important for that connected traveller. So this is a test that I've run on a Google developer website, so I won't say who it is. You probably might be able to guess, but I covered up most details. It is one of the destinations websites that I've run through this program, and it's actually not mobile ready. The text is too small, the links aren't there, and if I was a mobile traveller, I wouldn't have had a good experience on this site. However, I've looked at another site, which is Tourism Wollongong, and their mobile website is ready to go. They are doing really well. You can see all of the links, and you can basically function on that website quite easily. So all about you. I'm just having a quick look at Australia stats right now. How much are global users viewing Australia? Now, normally, and this is not within the slide, but I can tell you there's around 40 million page views in Australia viewed per month. 40 million. During January, we saw a spike to 70 million page views in Australia alone. So what's the cause? I would have to have as a guess that it would be something to do with Chinese New Year. Chinese travellers, before they travel, they're looking at their research because they generally don't research on their trip. And who are viewing on mobile? The Indonesians, the Australians, the South Koreans are a growing market on mobile, and the Thais. So this is just something to be interested if these are your target markets that you need to be aware of, that they are looking at you right now on mobile. So looking at China, we have a site in China called TripAdvisor China. However, it used to be called Dao, which didn't really mean anything to the Chinese traveller. So we have rebranded, and we have two sites, one behind the firewall and one outside of the firewall. So inside the firewall is actually in simplified Chinese, and outside of the firewall it's in traditional Chinese. So as a non-Chinese, I can only tell you what I know about that, and that is that mainland China users, they search and they write and they speak in simplified Chinese, whereas a Hong Kong or a Macau resident, they will speak in traditional. So looking at the China landscape, we're seeing that there will be around 1 billion Asian travellers by 2030, and of that, over 60% are going to come from China. So it's an interesting stat of only around 3 to 4 people out of 100 in China travel. Most people actually don't have passports. And I actually found out the other day that when you take a domestic trip in China by train, for example, you have to carry your passport still to this day, which is a really interesting fact that even domestic travellers have to have a passport. So looking at the market size, it is big. We know it's big. It is the biggest. And it's expected to grow to around 710 billion by 2020. So it's a lot of people coming, and I'll run through what we see as that meaning for destinations. But the spend is also increasing, and the shift to mobile. So it's reinforcing what I've been saying, everyone's looking on mobile. This is a very complicated slide. The only thing that I want you to look at is the increase in spend. They are increasing their trips, but it's mainly about increase in spend. So there's expected growth, but that actually means more money, and it means a lot more money. So it's growing 3 times the amount it is currently. So looking at TripAdvisor China and where they want to go and where they're looking at, I've been told through various people in TripAdvisor that we see very low rates of Chinese looking at India and looking at the Middle East. They are safe travelers. They want to feel safe. They want to experience a safe environment when they travel. So they like looking at closer destinations. They like short haul. So there was something that both myself and Sarah were talking about, which was they love going to Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Japan, South Korea. And I asked her why they like traveling there, and she said because they eat rice, which is true, they do. But that's something that I really think about myself, is that if I was a Chinese traveller, what is the first thing I'm going to look at when I arrive to Caloundra? A Chinese restaurant, Chinese food. Most Chinese travellers like to have those home comforts when they travel. And it's interesting to know that they are coming and they are looking at Australia and New Zealand. So it's good news there. However, they are status-driven travellers, so they like going to Paris because it's all about that status, and it's about they want to go somewhere that everyone else has been before. So looking at their dream destinations, they're always dreaming of coming to Australia and New Zealand, and we're hoping that that will rise and that will turn from dreaming to actually travelling, which is something that Andrew discussed. We need to get them here. We need to stop the dreaming and start the travelling. So who am I talking about in China? We all know about the 4 mega cities, but that only makes up 27%. So where is the other 75%? It is in the other 300 cities. So some to note would be Chengdu, Qingchong, and Guilin. They are growing fast. And just another piece of information is that not only are they growing, they're growing their infrastructure in China. So they're looking at around 55 new airports by 2020 to carry these travellers. So looking at the audience on TripAdvisor in China, they're actually mostly male. They are educated. They have a high disposable income, and they're millennials. So to look at the millennials, we are seeing that they like places such as Europe and Australia. They like those destinations. They also travel often. So a millennial traveller in China will travel more often than any other age group, which is obvious, but they like to travel as individuals or as couples. They're not so likely to travel as groups, whereas family travellers, they are more likely to travel as groups, and we're seeing that family travellers in China like to travel for education as well, so they'll bring their children along or they'll be visiting their children at that time. So looking at, this is just a very quick slide to show you what they are spending their money on: shopping and dining. But dining is more important than shopping. So this next slide says exactly the same thing. So our data is telling us they will spend more money on dining and sightseeing than they will on shopping. So it's really interesting to know that a lot of people talk about the Chinese shopper, but really they like those sightseeing, unique experiences. So looking at the key takeaways for today, takeaway food, the key thing is content is king. Content is what we need, and we need much more of it. So making sure that your content is there in your destination. If not, please come and ask me. There are ways that we can increase content very easily. Then looking at the mobile isn't the future, the mobile is now. They're looking on mobile. As I said, if you don't have a mobile-ready website, forget the 45%. And then China. It's not the biggest market. There are other growing markets, such as India or Indonesia, but we really see that growth in China and the growth on TripAdvisor. And actually, one story I wanted to tell you about China is that what a Chinese traveller can now do is they're sitting in their restaurant in Sydney. They can actually WeChat the menu, a photo of the menu, to their friends in China and ask them what they should eat. And then, as a collective on WeChat, they'll all respond on different things that they think that they should order, and then they'll make that decision. So now, we're putting our thoughts out to the world, and asking people what we should eat, which is what is happening in China. And that is all. Thank you so much.
What would some of your tips be for organizations who have not sort of started to explore the Asian market or Chinese market? What would you recommend to them to start with?
I think a good starting point would definitely be looking at some of the data that's available out there because, as TripAdvisor, we have treasure troves worth of data. However, it just matters how you're going to use it and what you're using it for. So I think it's really important to look at who's working well in China, who's not, and who they're targeting and how they're targeting. So definitely, I'm big on data, so I would start with that.
Great, thanks. You've been sharing with us a lot of what TripAdvisor is doing now. Can I ask you what TripAdvisor is doing next? Is there something that you can share that's not in the slides?
Among many things, TripAdvisor's focus is on the Instant Book platform. So we are on a daily basis signing up new hotel chains to actually sell their inventory through TripAdvisor. So it's now appears on TripAdvisor as book directly with TripAdvisor, and it's the #1 option on the meta search. And otherwise, we're also looking at vacation rentals. So we've acquired a business called FlipKey, which is actually based in Singapore, and they deal directly with vacation rental owners. And other than that, we've also got a restaurant side of the business. So we've just acquired Dimmy, which is the Australian-based restaurant booking engine, and they're based in Sydney. And we're doing a lot with them at the moment to push booking buttons on TripAdvisor.
I think one of the things that I also learned from your presentation, and I've seen it in other presentations as well, such as Chris Chambers' ones, is that there's a lot more emphasis and focus on the experience stage when people are on the ground. If I do the math correctly, you have 150,000 destinations on TripAdvisor, 300 offline guides. So you still have a few destinations to go, which makes you rely heavily on Wi-Fi.
Yes.
Now, I also just heard from Chris that Facebook is rolling out a whole beacon network. I can sort of see that it's important for TripAdvisor to make sure that visitors are connected when they're on the ground. Is there anything that TripAdvisor is considering doing, tapping into that whole arena?
Not that I know of. We're definitely looking at video content. So at the moment, our video content is a little bit hidden on the site. You can find it, but it is hidden. So we're actually looking at, and it was discussed in a forum a few weeks ago, can we allow travelers to upload their videos and put them on the homepage?
Yes.
Because how much do we trust that they're not videographers, so how do we trust that their content is accurate and reliable?
Yeah, clear. It also seems, what you also just explained, that TripAdvisor is stepping more into restaurant bookings. Are you stepping into event booking anytime soon?
Events are actually coming into play for destinations a lot. So we have a functionality on our destination page where you can list your events. And that's something that's just been added, and we're looking at advancing that. So we do have event listings, because when a traveller is looking, they're actually leaving the site to look for events, which is not what we want. If we have them for 15 minutes, we want to make sure that they're seeing everything that they can do, including events.
Okay, cool. Any questions from the audience?
Hi Jessica, great presentation. Good job. It's Rebecca again. Sorry, everyone. I just wanted to get your thoughts, Jessica, on some of these other disruptive technologies that we're seeing in the market, particularly around the sharing economy. So Airbnb, even Uber as well. What are your thoughts on that? And also, second follow-up question, what are your thoughts on other platforms that are kind of like TripAdvisor, but not necessarily so travel-focused, so like Yelp and Zomato and I guess other review sites that you're now kind of entering those markets now with your other acquisitions?
I think with the sharing economy, there's absolutely a place for it and a need and a want. So I think that they're great. I use them myself. In terms of TripAdvisor and how we see them, we actually don't see them as a competitor, but we see them as a complement to what we're doing. And then on your other message, we're aware of the other sites. I think the thing that differentiates TripAdvisor is the trust. People really trust TripAdvisor. They trust that those user-generated reviews are not verified reviews, which they will never be. And so therefore is the trust factor.
So just kind of going back to Yelp then, Yelp's pretty much in the same boat on that, in that they don't allow, like if you own the property that is being, so like it's a cafe, let's say for example, and someone writes a negative review, you can't ask them to remove it or anything like that as well. So would there be any other points of difference apart from the whole big package that you're offering, I guess?
I think the fact that TripAdvisor's been around for 15 years and that we have such a big database of people that not only visit the site once, but they're almost lifetime travellers. And I think the other point of difference is that we have a great way of interacting with the reviewers after they travel. So I strongly suggest for you to post a review if you can, but when you do, you receive follow-up emails on how many people have read your reviews, how many people have put the thumbs up that it was useful, and then from there you receive, different badges, and if you upload photos, your different level of reviewer. So we almost have a recognition platform that really sets us apart. So you can see, I could see, I'm reading a senior reviewer's review. I know that they're a seasoned traveller. So it's about those levels as well and knowing who the reviewer is.
Maybe one last question from me is you mentioned that mobile as a trend is very much now. So what's the next trend that we cannot afford to ignore, according to TripAdvisor, according to you?
Well, that's interesting. That's quite hard to answer. I think I've actually heard the term a multi-device traveller, which is something that we're seeing. So not only mobile, but they're connecting with their phone as well and different wearable technologies. So the multi-device traveller is the new term, and I think that's something to watch out for. So not only do you have to have your mobile-friendly website, your desktop-friendly, does it integrate with the Apple Watch? How can you view your website on the Apple Watch and any other wearable devices?
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.